not to necessarily go, let's push replay on all those conversations we've had in the past. It does feel a bit like, what do we need to know, if anything? Is there anything new we need to know about this latest COVID-19 increase and the projections that we've got this wave coming?
Well, yeah, it is a little bit of rinse and repeat of messaging, but the key message being that it's still here, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I mean, the greatest numbers since, what was it, December 2022?
Yeah.
So so it's distinctive, right? So yeah, as the news item said, that it's an extrapolation or an estimation based on wastewater. So, that's all we've got now because we're not testing.
Yeah.
So it's that we're in that phase now where COVID is still here, it's still causing deaths, it is still causing disease, it is still causing problems, so on and so forth. And we can't wish it to go away. We can't just ignore it to make it go away. And sadly, globally, that is what's seeming to happen, because the more we don't talk about it, the more people don't think it's there. So yes, it is significant. And the other sort of significant part of what's going on now is when we track New Zealand's pattern, I think is sort of the significant thing here. So, you can have a look at, the trace from since records began. And, we had that phenomenal Omicron peak, and we've never had something so substantial since. So thank goodness, right? Because that's when really the first wave came through. And yes, we've had waves since, but we've not had a sort of a giant spike. So I guess this is the headline sort of saying, okay, we're heading towards something a bit more substantial. And the other part of this sort of picture to sort of put into perspective is that normally we get, when there's a new variant that emerges, it's usually in our summer, which did happen, like as in the JN.1 came over our summer. So when the other hemisphere has their winter, they're usually, battling them all. They're battling a new wave of a new variant and all the winter illnesses. So they get the significant wave. Yes, the new variant hits our country, but we it's not a huge peak, right? So that pattern has happened the last 2 summers. The different thing that's happening now is we didn't sort of peak and go, oh, look, nailed that. We're sitting pretty and off we head towards winter. COVID's been bubbling along, and now we're sort of pre-winter and getting a spike. So what I've always said when I speak about the interesting trajectory of New Zealand is the one thing I've always maintained. I'm never crystal balling, right? I always say, I don't know what's coming next. In the same way, I reflect and say, look at our traces. We seem to be doing not so badly, in case numbers. So what I'm now seeing and then so-called sort of saying it's changing is that we are seeing these cases increase. And so what I've always maintained is we don't know how we'll fare in the winter. And that's starting to play out. So if we're starting to head up now, we so too could start to get the other winter bugs kicking in earlier. And so what it could mean, and I'm always saying could because I don't have a crystal ball, but, it could mean that, everything hits harder because we've got COVID peaking or starting to traject up now. And is that going to keep going? Are we going to get hit with more variants and so on? So it is a different picture than some of the patterns we've seen before. And especially if we haven't had it this high since, over a year ago. So it's all about the same messaging and none of this sort of pretending it's gone, or why are we still talking about that? Didn't that go? Isn't that finished? It's like, no, this virus is going to continue to cause havoc, and it'll cause more havoc the more we try and ignore it. So coupled in with all of that is the fact that we need to maintain public health messaging. We need to not be afraid of hearing that COVID's out there and protecting ourselves and all the rest of it, because layered upon that is, those that might be listening might say, or might not have thought about it, are like, oh, it's heading to winter. Gosh, COVID's everywhere. Might go get my vaccine. So the other part of all this is that if everyone forgets about COVID and you might get sick and you're like, this is probably COVID, or, you're ignoring it. And you might not bother to take a test. So you don't even know when you last had COVID, because, the recommendations, even with vaccination, is to wait 6 months since your infection. So it's kind of like we all now have our own responsibility to, to not pretend this virus is gone. And that includes testing, because we luckily still have access to these tools. Overseas, you're hard pushed to find them and you pay for them, right? So those are the sorts of messages that I just wish was still going, right? Like, as in, this is still out there. It is still killing people, and we will continue to see long-term health harms. And that's the thing. It's not like we've peaked and it'll only just bumble along. No. The other message I keep saying about New Zealand is, are we just a few waves behind what we have seen overseas? And again, no crystal ball here. If it's just about how many waves hit our country, it could just be a matter of time. And we know what could happen, and we're blatantly ignoring it.